Hello and welcome to News Central Television. I am Lekon Obanjo. The top stories at this hour. Rivers government denies court order blocking sole administrator's resumption. Senate defers state of emergency debate. As the world celebrates World Oral Health Day, WHO says only 17% of Africans have access to oral health care. 13 soldiers killed in terrorist attacks in Niger Republic. Details to come your way shortly. We begin with our continuing coverage of the Rivers State political crisis, where the Rivers State government has dismissed reports that a high court issued an order preventing the newly appointed sole administrator, retired Vice Admiral Ibok Ete-Ibas, from resuming office. Dr. Edison Ihie, Chief of Staff to the suspended governor, Siminalayi Fubara, described the claims as false and malicious, attributing them to individuals attempting to fuel political tensions in the state. Ihie insisted that the alleged court order and lawsuits were fabrications, stressing that they had no intention of disrupting governance. He also urged the public to disregard the rumors, stating that he remains law-abiding and committed to maintaining decorum. Meanwhile, Nigeria's Senate has stepped down a motion seeking the approval of the state of emergency declaration in Rivers State by President Bola Tinubu over not being provided with official explanation. News Central Sagir Ibrahim reports on the latest developments in the ongoing political crisis.
The approval of President Bola Tinubu's proclamation of a state of emergency in Rivers State was expected to be the first item for discussion on the day's order paper. But without much explanation, lawmakers stepped down the motion, delaying talks on the worsening political crisis in the oil-rich state. The motion, penciled to be sponsored by Senate leader Okpeyemi Bamidele, expressed concern over rising tensions in the state that have disrupted governance and limited the delivery of democratic dividends to Rivers residents. However, as proceedings progressed, Bamidele invoked Order 1B of the Senate Standing Orders, praying that the President of the Senate step down the debate and revisit it by 3 p.m.
That the first order of the day be stood down to enable us consider the second order of the day. I move the motion pursuant to Order 1B of our rules.
Distinguished colleagues, the motion has been moved and seconded that the first order of the day should be stepped down to 3 p.m. to enable us to consider other issues. Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. One man's voice cannot constitute the Senate.
Addressing the media after plenary, Ondo South lawmaker Jimoh Ibrahim explained that the delay was to allow for broader participation in the debate before the matter is brought to a vote.
The Senate is a democratic institution, and the Senate has given room for more members who is not aware of this yesterday, but got to know about it today, to be able to come tomorrow and air their views. Democracy is about numbers. It's about participation. So what we are saying is that we can adjourn it tomorrow in order to give room for more people to come. We formed quorum today. 68 people who signed the register. If you now accept 17 leaders of the Senatorate, we are more than a quorum. We could as well go on. But we don't want to say, oh, it was 3 o'clock they brought it, when members are already praying, they are fasting, and then there were not many people on the floor. That's the time they passed the proclamation. No. First thing tomorrow morning, information I got to other members. Some members are fasting, they are praying in their homes. Tomorrow they will be here, and then by 10 o'clock, we pick it up. We are in tandem with Mr. President.
The political standoff has resulted in the suspension of democratic institutions in Rivers State for 6 months, with expectations that the period will allow aggrieved parties to resolve their differences and restore peace to the state. In Abuja, for News Central, Sagir Ibrahim.
In response to escalating attacks on oil pipelines in Rivers State, the federal government has deployed 10,000 personnel from the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps to combat pipeline vandalism. The deployment follows a series of explosions between Sunday and Tuesday, putting the region's critical infrastructure at risk. The NSCDC's mission is to protect national assets and maintain peace in the Niger Delta. Meanwhile, opposition lawmakers and the Nigeria Labour Congress have staged protests against the declaration of the emergency rule in Rivers State. The decision has heightened tensions, with Ijaw groups threatening retaliation over the push to impeach the governor. The unfolding situation has also sparked a nationwide debate, with stakeholders calling for a peaceful resolution. And to give us more updates on this, we have our correspondent Biola Festus on standby. And of course, to discuss this further, we're joined by a political analyst, Declan Ihekari. So let's start with our reporter, that is Biola. Biola, good morning to you. Has anyone or anybody claimed responsibility for the attacks on oil installations in Rivers State?
What we know currently, no one has claimed responsibility for the attack on pipelines or oil facilities in the state. But the Ogonis, whom this happened in their LGA, are beginning to speak up to say, look, we are not responsible for this sabotage. It has got to be outsiders trying to frame them, or outsiders trying to create a narrative that the cause for the declaration of a state of emergency emanated from their domain. So that's the information we have right now concerning the blast or the explosion at oil pipelines.
So does this mean that we might start experiencing renewed attacks on oil assets, or these are just isolated cases?
Right now, because the ones that happened, there are also narratives surrounding it that it has connection to those fighting for whom takes charge of the pipeline surveillance, or who gets the contract to survey the oil facilities in these vicinities. So all of these are narratives around this explosion. We do not know for sure which is truth, because we weren't there, of course, when it happened. And you would also know that there have been a lot of misinformation going around in Rivers State as a result of this declaration for the state of emergency. Yesterday we gathered that the Edison Ehiye, who is the former chief of staff to the governor, had secured a court judgment to stop the sole administration from resuming. But in a midnight press statement, he had debunked it. He said he was not a party to that was a total fake news. So all of this, we've got to be wary of fake news coming from the state, so that we don't get things tensed up.
Of course, we know that there will be a place like this to heat up the polity, but then one needs to be careful of misinformation going around. Now, I'd like to find out, have there been any maybe troops or personnel of the NSCDC on ground? Because we understand that the federal government has asked personnel of the NSCDC to actually man critical assets and provide protection for them.
As at the time we reported the explosion till yesterday, we haven't seen any statements from the NSCDC. Neither have we gotten an invite from them to speak on it. But we are still looking forward. We are still waiting for them to speak up. We are also waiting for NOSDRA to talk on this, to actually tell us the amount of spill and the extent of damage. We are still waiting for all of these people to come forth and speak on it, because they are the regulatory agencies and concerned bodies when it's got to do with crude oil infrastructure.
All right, so we understand that some of the residents staged, we saw the video where they staged protests, and the NLC also said to have also done same. How are the people in Rivers State taking this all in? And what is the position of the NLC in this matter?
Now, Rivers people have been calm since this declaration. They said they do not want a further state of insecurity, or they do not want to do anything that would make the president further declare or say the state is outlaw. So they've been in a peaceful disposition since this declaration. But all eyes are currently on the Senate now. They are looking forward to the outcome from Senate. Although they've called on several fora that the Senate should not ratify the emergency rule, but today would give a closure to that, because the Senate has 48 hours to ratify it or reject it. So they've been caused that the Senate should reject it, that the state has not been plunged into crisis and to warrant a state of emergency. In fact, Rivers people are wondering, what have we done? Where did we go wrong to have this emergency rule declared in our state? Yesterday we had some women from Rivers State, notable women from across the 23 local government areas of Rivers State, gathered to pray for peace in Rivers State, and of course for the restoration of their governor. Their cries have been, when the troubles will start, their sons will be recruited to fight. Their husbands will also be part of these. So they do not want these casualties. They want a state where they can feel safe with their sons and husbands. So that's the reason you saw Rivers women crying yesterday at the Isaac Borough Park. They are calling on the First Lady. Now this has gotten to a point of women speaking to their fellow women. They are calling on the First Lady, Senator Oluremi Tinubu, to intervene, to talk to the president, her husband, to tell him that should trouble start brewing in Rivers State, should there be any emergency in Rivers State, their sons would likely go for it. We've seen this before. It has happened before. The militancy era in Rivers State is still very much fresh in their hearts, and this is a situation that they would not like to witness again. Meanwhile, the All Progressives Congress in Rivers State has issued an early morning statement that they are satisfied with the declaration of a state of emergency in Rivers State. In fact, they tagged it a painful satisfaction. They said this has got to be the only way out of the brewing crisis and economic sabotage in the state. According to the statement, Chief Tony Okocha, who is the chairman of APC in the state, said this solution proffered by the president is what the people actually want, that majority of Rivers people are happy with this decision by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, ATB.
All right, Biola Festus, thank you so much for sharing these updates with us. We'll continue to keep tabs with you to get more details. Thank you. In the meantime, there has been tension over a state of emergency imposed by President Bola Tinubu on Rivers State. Politicians from across the political divide, residents as well as labor unions have been reacting to both the declaration and the suspension of the state's executive and the legislative arms of government. One of the reactions is from the former vice president and PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar, describing the situation as a political manipulation, adding that President Tinubu's been a vested partisan actor in the crisis. Similarly, presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, described the president's action as unconstitutional and reckless. He accused President Tinubu of disregarding the rule of law and showing a dangerous willingness to trample on democracy. Still on the state of emergency in Rivers State, the federal government says Rivers State allocation will be released to the new administrator, Ibok Eteibas. The Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Lateef Fagbemi, announced this while briefing State House correspondents at the presidential villa in Abuja. The development comes after President Bola Tinubu imposed emergency rule in Rivers State on Tuesday. The Supreme Court had on February 28 upheld a federal high court ruling that prohibited the Central Bank of Nigeria and the Accountants General of the Federation from disbursing statutory monthly allocations to Rivers State. The Supreme Court also directed the Martin Amewule-led faction of the Rivers State House of Assembly, which is aligned with the Federal Capital Territory Minister Nyesom Wike, to resume legislative sittings.
The president came out boldly yesterday to say the situation cannot be allowed to continue, a situation in which the critical economic life of the nation, what is giving lifeline to the nation, to be, criminally touched without any response from those who would ordinarily be expected to do so. There were what I would call telegraphing of the militants, I would say, by the governor. And the reason I said so was when he beckoned to them that, he would let them know when it was time to act, to the militants. Let us say it was wrong. Did he come out to disown them? The answer is no. And a week after they swung into action, you see or witness vandalization of oil pipelines.
Well, even as we continue to talk about this, we have a political analyst, Declan Hikare, join me. Thank you so much for joining us on the news.
Yeah, thank you and good morning, Nigerians.
You're welcome. So let's pick it from the angle of Lateef Fagbemi, the Attorney General of the Federation, saying that the state of emergency declaration was justified because the governor did not take decisive step to actually disown those who are said to be attacking oil facilities in the state. Do you think that is a tenable excuse for the declaration?
Well, to the best of my knowledge, and without hiding my thoughts, I would like to say clearly to Nigerians, to the whole world, that Mr. Lateef Fagbemi, SAN, is a disappointment to the legal profession that he confessed or he professed to be a member of. How could you make such an allegation without substantiating? It's quite unfortunate. And I have no reason to say he's one of those ambulance lawyers who just come on air and speak for speaking sake.
Let's just focus on the issue, all right?
Nigeria today is so tense. You said?
Yeah, I'd like us to desist from, making disparaging remarks on personalities. Let's focus on the issue, all right?
It's not about disparaging remarks. Those that know me for what I believe in. I always speak to points and facts. He is the Attorney General that should have guided whatever thing that's happening in this nation today. And almost every Nigerian have said that the decision of Mr. President is totally wrong. And for him to come on air to be justifying such by putting an allegation before Mr. Governor Fubara, for me and to many Nigerians, it's belittling of his position as the Attorney General.
Okay, so do you think that Declan, do you think that this tension and the possible resumption of hostilities on oil facilities in Rivers State could have been avoided, even with the federal government wading in?
To have advised rightly, did not do what he ought to have done. In the
Hello, Declan, can you hear me? Okay, so I think we just lost connection with Declan right there, but this is a particular story we are still going to stay on and probably get more perspective from him and maybe some other people on the matter. But then let's go on our very short break on the news. When we return, we'll bring you more stories. Do stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us. Now, Nigerians in the United States are urging President Bola Tinubu to intervene on behalf of those whose properties were demolished to make way for the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway project in a peaceful protest held in Chicago under the banner of Nigerian foreign investors. The demonstrators accused the Ministry of Works, led by David Umahi, of diverting the highway's route in the Okwaja area, resulting in the destruction of properties worth millions of naira. The protesters have threatened to petition the Federal Bureau of Investigations and the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, alleging misconduct in the project's execution. They are calling on the Nigerian president to address their concerns before they escalate the matter internationally.
And what we are doing today is to get the attention of our President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. We are doing this in Chicago because Chicago is a place that he went to school. He knows what it means for an American to make money, to work 9 to 5, to come down to Nigeria to invest. I want to say thank you for all the people that has hope on the Renew Hope. We still have hope on the Renew Hope. And we know that the Renew Hope will work for us. We have all our documentation. We have the coastal road right-of-way clearance. We have our governor's consent. We have everything. But because we have a reckless minister, a minister that abuses his office, a minister that empowers his ministry to perpetuate corruption, because I brought this to his notice. Maybe if I have given the 200 million in cash, in dollars, that they told me to change, the Assistant Federal Controller of Works, Olufemi Dare.
Away from that, Nigeria's federal government has flagged off a women support fund to promote women in exports in the country. This was at a one-day conference in Abuja, where stakeholders called for more women participation in the nation's export sector in a bid to boost the nation's gross domestic product. They say that the initiative will mitigate the challenges faced by women entrepreneurs in accessing finance and provide adequate support for those in the sector.
The fund is developed to broaden Nigeria's export basket through the empowerment of women, enhance the abilities of women who play in the export value chain, improve quality at all stages of the value chain, from the production to post-production and retail distribution, thereby deepening export value and diversifying revenue streams for women.
With the reforms that the government is pursuing, especially around exchange rate, there's a huge opportunity to grow export. And Nigeria's exports as a percentage of GDP is actually lower than the peers. So that's a huge opportunity to grow exports. And I suggested that it might be worth having a focal person that drives exports. So Nigeria's export to GDP is about 9.2. With the rebasing, it would likely go down. So if you then compare that to sort of Senegal, 23, Ghana in the 30s, South Africa 32, it shows that actually it's not that we're importing too much, it's that we're exporting too little. So we need to look at the bottlenecks that are stopping us from exporting and exploit that opportunity, which is one of the key deliverables of the macroeconomic reforms that the government is pursuing?
Nigeria has a huge potentials in agro-commodity exports. And as a bank, we're driving value addition for export because we believe that's the only way we can create jobs for our people. And so for the women in the grassroots, get ready. We already have businesses that we're funding, from sesame to cashew nuts to hibiscus, and women play in the entire value chain. And so you'll be expecting to see more. We're really serious to creating more jobs for women in the grassroots.
Let's now tell you that the Presidential Compressed Natural Gas Initiative has expressed its deep condolences over the tragic accident on Karu Bridge located between Kudo and Inyanya in the Federal Capital Territory. The accident involved a bi-fueled truck and a petrol tanker, resulting in a fatal explosion. Preliminary reports suggest that brake failure was the likely cause. In response, the PCNG reaffirmed its commitment to promoting the safe and sustainable use of compressed natural gas. It pledged to strengthen collaboration with agencies such as FEMA and the Federal Fire Service to enhance safety standards. The organization also commended the swift response of emergency teams, including FEMA, the Niger Police Force, and NEMA. Meanwhile, the public has been urged to await official findings before drawing conclusions about the incident. In a related development, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited has refuted reports of an explosion at the Port Harcourt Refining Company in Rivers State. The company clarified that what occurred was a flare incident, which has since been fully contained. It said there is no danger or health hazard to staff, the surrounding communities, or the environment. NNPC Limited urged the media and the public to disregard any reports suggesting an explosion at the refinery, as they are entirely false. Coming up on the news, ISF attacks kill 15 Sudan's Khartoum in 1 week. We will tell you more and bring you more stories when we return. Join us again. Let's now bring you stories from the maritime sector. Amidst the huge decline in cargo at the Nigerian ports, the 15% increase in port tariffs implementation has taken effect, as announced by the Nigerian Ports Authority. And while the NPA has cited the need to modernize infrastructure and equipment in the ports to justify the increase, stakeholders say this might increase cargo diversion to neighboring countries. The Central's maritime correspondent in Nyoma Obiaswalo assesses the implications of this hike on the sector.
At a time when Nigerian businesses are struggling with the rising cost of operations, high rate of foreign exchange, and economic uncertainties, stakeholders say imposing additional financial burden in the form of increased port tariff is ill-timed. They say the move is in contrast to ease of doing business, and its ripple effect will lead to higher production costs, increased inflationary pressures, loss of jobs, reduced port competitiveness, and of locally manufactured goods. The question that then begs for answers will be, is this increase in tariff wrong or just ill-timed?
The Nigerian government is relying on the fact that we have the cargoes. We have the volume of the cargoes. Hence, we are not serious about making our ports competitive. There are many criteria or many things that need to be put in place for our ports to be competitive. When neighboring countries are giving incentives to their importers, we keep bringing in various measures, levies, taxes, slamming it on one cargo. And that is why our ports will not be competitive. And it's unfortunate that the federal government has not seen this as a serious issue. I tell it to you that we are losing our project cargo. That is the disheartening part of it to Lomé. Here, we are losing our project cargo on a yearly basis to Lomé. And nobody seems to be doing anything about it. It is ill-timed. It is not a period when you should be talking about increase. It is a period where we should be talking about palliatives to ameliorate the suffering, because a lot of things are happening in the international world and the world market. So how do we now gain this this volume of goods to our port. We have the volume of goods, but unfortunately, we are losing it gradually. We have lost about 20% to Cotonou. We have lost about 15% to Côte d'Ivoire, and we are continually losing it. Deep vessels now cannot even come our waterways. They prefer to take cargoes to Côte d'Ivoire. So we are losing it, and it's not interesting. So if you must increase, let us sensitize Nigerians enough, and let us tarry on the issue of increase for another 12 months.
The increase is ill-timed, the timing is wrong, and the economy cannot accommodate it for now. It behoves on most of these agencies to understand the implication of introducing increase in tariff and also new charges. MPA increment presently is not only going to kill the economy, but it's also going to cripple the inbound shipment and the outbound shipment in Nigeria, and is going to lead to what we call hyperinflation. Already we have so many charges that are coming on every cargo that are inbound and outbound. Unfortunately, immediately MPA increased charges, it will directly affect the shipping company as well as the terminal operators. And when it affects the shipping company and the terminal operators, the cost of doing business will increase. We are looking at MPA encouraging actors to bring in more cargo. The more cargo that MPA is able to attend to through their consolidator, which is ENL, APMT, and the rest of them, the more cargo they are able to attend to will determine the increase in their revenue. Increasing on every cargo that comes in will not profit them. Is an archaic way of making money. If the cargo input drops and you increase charges, the charges will still not satisfy your target because the cargo has dropped. We should be looking at how do we facilitate trade and encourage people and make the port to be business friendly so more cargo can come in so you can make more money.
These figures show the effect of this hike is already telling on the cost of vessels calling at the Nigerian ports. Stakeholders say Nigeria must remain competitive in regional trade to check neighboring countries hijacking Nigerian cargoes, which in the end still returns to the country via smuggling, thereby creating economic losses. Vessels calling at the Nigerian ports leave with empty containers, while agricultural produce get out of Nigeria by road with lesser fees, consequently enriching the neighboring countries which have more efficient and cost-effective ports, leading to increased cargo diversion. In Lagos, for News Central, Norma Obiaswalo.
Now, the World Health Organization has raised concerns about the state of oral health care in Africa, revealing that the region lags behind key global oral health indicators. The WHO Acting Regional Director for Africa, Dr. Chikwe Ihekweazu, stated that only 17% of the region's population has access to essential oral health care services. He made this known in his message on Thursday as the world marks 2025 World Oral Health Day, observed annually on March 20 to raise awareness and prioritize oral health. According to Dr. Chikwe Ihekweazu, oral diseases such as dental caries, gum disease, and tooth loss affected 42% of the WHO African region's population in 2021. Away from that, the Nigerien Army has confirmed that 13 soldiers have been killed in 2 separate terrorist attacks. The first attack took place on March 15 at a gold mining site in the Tillabéri region, where 9 soldiers lost their lives in a battle with Islamic State affiliates. The assailants, who arrived on around 100 motorcycles from Burkina Faso, were confronted by Nigerien and Burkinabé forces, resulting in the deaths of 55 tourists, while 7 Nigerian soldiers were wounded. 2 days later, a Boko Haram attack on a military outpost claimed the lives of 4 more soldiers. Despite these challenges, Niger's ruling junta, which seized power in the July 2023 coup, is working alongside Mali and Burkina Faso to establish a 5,000-strong regional force to tackle ongoing security threats. The African Union says it welcomes the talks that took place in Qatar between the heads of states of Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo as fighting rages on in the eastern DRC. In a statement on Wednesday, AU chairperson Mahmoud Ali Yusuf commended the two countries for their commitments to dialogue and urged all parties to maintain the momentum. Democratic Republic of Congo President Felix Tshisekedi and Rwandan President Paul Kagame have held direct talks for the first time since Rwanda-backed M23 rebels seized two major cities in eastern DRC. In a joint statement issued with Qatar, whose emir mediated the talks in Doha, the countries called for an immediate ceasefire in eastern DRC. The heads of state then agreed on the need to continue the discussions initiated in Doha in order to establish solid foundations for lasting peace. Joining us to discuss more on this is a geopolitical analyst, Aaron Ngambi. Mr. Ngambi, thank you so much for joining us on the news.
Thank you for having me.
So, what are your thoughts on the peace meeting held in Qatar?
I think that it's very encouraging from what we are seeing coming out of Doha. This is the first time that President Tshisekedi and President Paul Kagame have been able to come together and meet in person in front of the mediator to actually discuss the crisis in the Eastern Congo, DR Congo. So I think that we are hopeful and we're encouraged that this will lead to a lasting peace process and that the two parties will continue to actually negotiate and talk to each other, because that's the quickest way that you can resolve a conflict or a crisis, is when the parties that are involved are able to come to the table and discuss. So I think this is the right step in the right direction.
All right, but Aaron, what do you think the factors are that might have influenced African leaders to consider external mediation, such as that in Qatar, rather than relying on African-led mediation initiatives?
Yeah, that's a very good question, because most of us were hopeful that this is a situation that can be resolved by the African leaders. We can look to an African solution to African problems. But unfortunately, we have seen that there were talks previously in Nairobi, in Kenya. There were talks scheduled for Luanda in Angola. And there were talks that have been led by the East African community together with SADC. And also there was a meeting that was scheduled to be held in Tanzania, which actually took place in Tanzania in February. So all of these have been efforts and attempts by African leaders to try to resolve this conflict. Unfortunately, not much progress was made until this news that is coming out of Doha. And partly it's because we have seen that either Rwanda or the DR Congo has accused some of the African countries or leaders to be probably biased. I'll give an example of Kenya. Kenya has been accused of being more favorable towards Rwanda and Kigali at the expense of the DR Congo. So these talks that were initiated previously by African leaders, that they have attempted to bring the parties together, actually stalled because there has been this perception that some African leaders favor one over the other. Therefore, Qatar looks to be somewhat neutral as a mediator, and perhaps that's why Qatar has made some progress. But ideally, we should have been looking at a situation where African leaders, African politicians, and African countries were able to resolve this conflict. But unfortunately, SADC has been accused of taking sides. The East African community have been accused of taking sides. And therefore, I think that Qatar was able to prevail and even be able to bring the two heads of states from the DR Congo and Rwanda in the same place. Remember that Paul Kagame was able to show up in Tanzania for that East African community and SADC meeting, but Tshisekedi joined that meeting via online or virtually. So these have been the challenges. The African leaders have tried and attempted to do all sorts of efforts that are needed in a mediation, but all of those efforts are not yielded fruits. But this is a good thing that is coming out of Qatar, and we hope that Qatar will be impartial and be able to resolve this conflict as soon as possible.
All right, Aaron Ngambi, thank you so much for sharing your perspective with us on the news.
Thank you for having me. Have a wonderful day.
Outside of the African continent, we tell you that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says it discussed potential U.S. control of the Russian-occupied Zaporizhia nuclear power plant with U.S. President Donald Trump. Speaking to reporters, Zelensky clarified that their discussion focused solely on Zaporizhia power plant, which remains under Russian control. His comments came after Trump reportedly proposed that the United States take ownership and operate Ukraine's nuclear plants as part of its latest bid to negotiate a ceasefire in the ongoing war. The Zaporizhia nuclear power station, the largest in Europe, was seized by Russian forces in the early days of the February 2022 invasion. Since then, it has remained a flashpoint of concern over the risk of a nuclear incident.
Було питання щодо атомної станції. Питання було ніякої не мережі атомних станцій. Питання було виключно станції, яка сьогодні знаходиться під тимчасовою окупацією, і вона, як ви знаєте, в небезпеці через те, що Росія там панує зі зброєю. Так, і вона не працює знов-таки через те, що Росія абсолютно незаконно її утримує, її окупувала. Президент запитав, а якщо буде розуміння, що Америка може це відновити, я йому сказав так, якщо можна модернізувати, вкладати гроші, тощо, ми готові це обговорювати з вами. Але ми говорили виключно про одну станцію, яка знаходиться під...
We also tell you that Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has announced that a flight carrying 306 repatriated migrants from Mexico will arrive in Venezuela on March 20. This comes amid growing tensions over the United States' decision to deport Venezuelan migrants to a maximum security prison in El Salvador. The Trump administration recently transferred 238 Venezuelans to El Salvador, alleging their ties to the Tren de Aragua criminal gang. To justify the move, the administration invoked a 1798 law that permits the expulsion of enemy aliens without trial. Straight to business, we understand that the Dangote Petroleum Refinery has temporarily suspended the sale of petroleum products in Naira following the breakdown of Naira for crude negotiations with the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited. The refinery announced the suspension on Wednesday, triggering a sharp rise in petrol loading costs at private depots in Lagos, with prices surging from 850 Naira to 900 Naira per litre. The Dangote Group said the suspension of petroleum product sale in Naira is temporary. Industry experts warned that this move could further strain the foreign exchange market, as increased demand for US dollars will be required to import petroleum products. Insiders point to NNPCL's excessive forward sales of crude oil as a major factor, leaving the company struggling to supply adequate crude for domestic refining. In sports, Super Eagles captain William Troost Ekong admitted that the team is fired up for the clash with the Amavubi of Rwanda. Eric Chell's side started preparation for the crucial 2026 FIFA World Cup qualifying fixture on Tuesday. The players had another session at the Amahoro Stadium training ground on Wednesday night. The centre-back declared that they are looking forward to the crucial clash.
So everything's been good. First training session, all the boys in camp. We fired up. Of course, we know we have a big job ahead. It comes with the pressure, but I keep saying to everyone that this pressure is a privilege. So all the boys are feeling that. We're very happy to work with a new coach. He's given us a lot of new instructions. So for us, it's just to make sure that we understand what he wants from us on Friday, but we're working towards that.
Now, Nick Kyrgios secured his first victory since 2022, overcoming Mackenzie McDonald 6-3, 6-3, 6-4 in the Miami Open first round on Wednesday. The Australian, sidelined for 18 months due to wrist surgery, battled back after retiring in his Indian Wells opener earlier this month. Kyrgios admitted doubts about ever returning to professional tennis, citing persistent injury struggles. The 2022 Wimbledon finalist expressed relief after his hard-fought 1-hour 43-minute win, stating it rekindled a sense of belonging on the court. Despite the milestone, Kyrgios remains cautious about his wrist's recovery. The 29-year-old hopes the victory fuels his comeback, but acknowledges the physical demands of competing again. He'll assess his fitness before his next match. And that's all at this hour. But before we go, we'll look at our top stories again. Rivers government has denied court order blocking sole administrator's resumption as Senate defers state of emergency debates. As the world celebrates World Oral Health Day, WHO says only 17% of Africans have access to oral health care. We also told you that 13 soldiers were killed in terrorist attacks in Niger Republic. Don't forget to send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen. And you can follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch us live on DSTV channel 422, GoTV channel 23, Star Times 274, Arvo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Lekon Onobanjo.